welcome back. Part 2 with Keith Hackett, with Carla Ward, with James Gregg. Nice to see you again, James. I know you were away at the Open, I think. No, the PGA Championship.
Yeah.
And you're going to do the Open, I know, coming up.
Yeah.
So you've got plenty on your plate in terms of the roundup that we're going to present shortly. Apologies again for the fact that we're one camera down this evening, but don't worry, it's my camera that's down, so you're missing nothing whatsoever. We've got the two operating, and the main one there is on these two guys over here. I can call you Guy, can't I? Of course I can. Carla, this thing about, and I'm going to come to Keith in a minute, this thing about former players and managers becoming pundits. He's one over there. Keith and I are both signed up members of the Grumpy Old Men Club, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Absolutely. And who make comments based on a lot of experience in your, not so much in mine, but a lot of experience in your case. And so the conclusion is that you're just bitter and twisted, you've had your day, and stop moaning, Hackett, and support these referees. That's the kind of reaction you get, isn't it?
I do get that reaction. I'm a million miles away from that. I think that I was at the start of professional refereeing, and I saw a growth in performance, a payback, if you like, for all the money's put into that. And when I left, we were spending somewhere around about £5 million on referee training, development, sports science, performance analysis, all those things that said we want to make better referees, out of which came Howard Webb, World Cup referee, Clattenburg, #1, both achieved #1 status in the world. So when you reach that, you then want to see other referees coming through, developing a good succession plan, and you want to see those referees come through quickly based on the knowledge that the others have gained, and them hopefully passing that knowledge on.
And you've not seen this?
No, what I've seen is that without a shadow of a doubt, Alan, you know, losing Webb and losing Clattenburg was going to have a negative effect on the overall performance of that group of referees. But then what we've seen is someone lacking in producing the level of accountability that's required. You know, we've moved into an area where we've got 53-year-olds running around on the Premier League. Now, I've done it at 50, and I was a fit cookie. I watched what I ate, I trained hard. When you get to 50, the VO2 max, as they call it, catches up with you. Age catches up.
Not been enough churn for you.
So what you've got is, you've got an age profile.
Yeah.
Now, week in, week out, I'm watching Penistone Church, Stocksbridge Works, and I'm seeing outstanding referees. I saw Penistone Church play Shaw Lane in the Senior Cup final at Bramall Lane. Great experience for them to be able to run out on Bramall Lane. And a young referee, Tom Bramall, Sheffield lad, referee, outstanding. I've gone there and I've said to somebody, he should be Football League. And he is.
Well, okay.
They promoted him, not because of my...
They're not getting them through quickly enough, is what you're saying. What about this thing, though, about you being a pundit now, and, you know, you've been a pundit for several years, and you talk with great authority, and the kind of media coverage that now Sheffield United ladies are going to get within the FA Women's Super League structure. You're going to have sort of well-known figures in the in the women's game making comments about your players and possibly your management. How is that going to sit with you?
It's opinions. It's football. You know, when we initially got the status, there was a lot of negativity, a lot. But I actually warned a lot of people at the club that probably weren't expecting it to expect it, because that's football. That's the nature of football. It doesn't matter because it's the women's game. It's no different. For me, it's football, and you've got to take the rough with the smooth. And you know, if we can sit here all fine and dandy and say all this brilliant news, then you've got to be able to take a little bit as well, I think. That's
great to hear, because I saw, swapping sports to cricket for a moment, Chris Broad cutting up, Stuart Broad, sorry, Chris Broad's his father, a batsman. Stuart Broad cutting up rough about comments from Michael Vaughan. You saw those as well, James.
He dealt with them quite well, really, because you know, I think you know, in football there tends to be kind of like this. You know, they sit in a press conference, and you've seen it with Guardiola and Gary Neville, and he kind of sits there and just hammers him, doesn't he? You know, but I think that with Stuart Broad, cricket is very fickle. They lose a test match, 3 players need to be dropped and the game's in disarray. They win a test match and everything's fine. I think that's particularly fickle. But then again, football, you probably get more opinion and you get so many different varying opinions. And I think it's a good attitude to take. You just got to kind of, or you can kind of cultivate it and use it as motivation. Is that something that you would try and do, Carla?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because obviously, a lot of people have said, Sheffield United, they've got in because of the money and because of the badge. No, we've got him because of a very good bid. Now, one thing I would say is, there's a lot of doubters out there, so straight away we use all that doubt and say, well, this is why we're going to go and prove why we're there, with the resources we've got, with the facilities, with the backing, when we get a successful team on the pitch and actually show that, yeah, you know what, the FA made the right decision putting us in. But yeah, for me, the negativity is not a big issue.
What was the clinching criteria in being successful with the bid, do you feel?
I think probably the backing. I think the integration with the club. I mean, you only have to walk around Bramwell Lane to tech, and any single department, every single department works with the ladies and the men. And I think this is probably the best way of putting it. The club weren't entirely, how do I word this? They weren't too wise on the women's game, so therefore they're treating the ladies like the men. That's the best possible way I can put it. And actually, that shows what they're doing with the ladies, because they only know how to run a men's club. So they're running the ladies exactly like the men's. And it's probably the best way of...
Probably the best way.
Yeah.
Alan, when I sort of make a comment about a referee's performance, I'm a fan, first of all. And when I sit there and the referee's made an error in law, I think that my task is to inform the public, wherever, and those that want to listen, that the application of law here is incorrect.
Yes.
Well, we're still seeing, and even throughout this last season, we're still seeing performances of referees that are short in terms of being at the point of the problem. When I've analysed thousands of games, referees' errors are because the referee's not in a good position with the right viewing angle, right? But we're also seeing, and have witnessed, application of law in terms of careless, reckless with excessive force challenges being interpreted incorrectly as an individual referee and across the group as a whole.
Yeah.
In the World Cup, Kalina has already had and Busaka have already had a series of meetings with referees from around the world, bringing them in on a regular basis, looking at endless video clips and having discussion, and then saying, as the leader, this is how this challenge or this aspect of law will be interpreted.
Do you think it'll be a good World Cup for the referees, knowing the preparation that's gone in?
The reality is, you haven't got the world's best referees at the World Cup. Let's be clear about that.
Really? Why is it?
Because what happens is the selections from referees around the world. I mean, I can remember, I can only give you an example. My example would be 88 Olympic Games in Seoul. And I'm sat there with a guy who's going to referee a football match. 44,000 spectators, not huge, but 44,000 spectators in the stadium. And he's saying to me, I don't know whether I can cope. The biggest amount of spectators I've officiated him from is 1,400.
Yeah, that's
so
mad, isn't it?
So what you've got is you've also got this speed of the game and the different aspects of nationalities coming together and clashing sometimes. Now, all this is about how well they're prepared. Yeah. And they will have been prepared really well, but for some, they're now operating at the Premier League level and above, and they've only refereed in their career at this level.
How would they get put in that position?
Because, FIFA want to promote the game worldwide. They want to promote refereeing worldwide, and therefore they say, right, from this nation, CONCACAF or Africa or wherever, we're going to have X number of referees. Yeah. So in Europe, I think we've got 10.
And England haven't got any.
And England haven't got any, but that's because of Clattenburg. And the others have got 6.
Yeah. We'll come to Clattenburg in a minute. He's a maverick, isn't he, a bit? But this guy is clearly a character. I don't know him. You know him. He rubs along pretty well with players on the field. and you say, and I respect your view, that he shouldn't be coming out or maybe saving some of what he's saying for a book. But I suspect an awful lot of football fans would have thought, when he said, look, when I cock up on a game and I drive home and I'm miserable, I'm going to drink a load of beer. That's effectively what he said. Well, and I think all of us say, well, that's a human reaction, yeah, why not? What do you think about it, Carla? What did you think when you read that, if you read that? I know what you think.
No, it is a human reaction. You know, a lot of people do, you know, after a bad day, they go in when they have a drink. It
normalises referees, in a sense.
And actually, yeah.
I think at the end of the day, whatever takes a lot, let's make no mistake about it, the referees worry more about their errors than they do about the good bits. And often you'd have to, on a Monday morning when the professional referees come together, you'd have to pick them up off the floor, some of them, because their view is they've had a disastrous performance. And then you say, just a minute, you've got 200 or 300 decisions that you've made, you got one wrong, let's have a look at it. Yeah. How can you then avoid that error in the future?
But what this does show, above all, is it negates this comment that referees don't care. Because if one's going home and it's ruined his weekend, you know, people think wrongly that it doesn't affect a referee when he makes a mistake. Well, you know it does.
I mean, what you've got to understand, I think people fail to understand the amount of training that these guys have to do. You know, and it's all monitored. I mean, I put in the polar heart monitors and the 2 sports scientists so that when they did the training away from the training ground, because we weren't like a football team, we were right across England, what we would do is they would have to download that information. Yeah. And then our sports analysis would say to me, at the end of the day, this guy's done his adequate training. Yeah. And if he's not done his training, then I'd be on the phone and say, you've not done it, you're not out Saturday. I'm taking the game back off you.
Yeah, tough management. And I was playing devil's advocate with Keith there about the grumpy old men aspect. Well, no, I'm turning into one myself. James Gregg, you cannot be accused of same.
No,
not yet.
No, not yet.
But
give it a few years.
You've done your homework and your preparation, I know.
A little bit.
And we're talking to over there.
Indeed, over there.
I know I'm being thrown by that.
It's a long way away, actually.
Our camera's given up on us. It's sacked us. So
we're always bound to break a camera at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit weird because there's not any football on at the minute, obviously, until the World Cup starts. So it's it's slightly odd at the minute, but we'll start with Sheffield Steelers. So silverware actually eluded the Steelers this season for the first time in many moons, really. But they're already making some big signings. Josh Pitt is the first of them. We'll have to get Paul Thompson in at some point.
Oh yeah, he's been invited.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, because it'd be interesting to hear his take on it and how they're going to build for next season. But that's already started. But what about the Sheffield Eagles as well? They're in action this coming Sunday at the Olympic Legacy Park against Swinton Lions. They beat Barrow in their last match, so they can make it back-to-back wins this weekend as well. Kell Brook, he'll hopefully be back in the boxing ring, but he's going to have to be on the undercard for the first time in more than 4 years. That's at the O2 in London on the undercard of Dillian White versus Joseph Parker. Of course, Anthony Joshua has beaten both of them, so they're kind of trying to slug their way back up the heavyweight rankings as well. So Kell Brook's going to be on the undercard of that. I think it's sometime in July. No idea who he's going to be fighting yet. Of course, he won his last fight back in March. Danny Willett, you may have missed this because we'd sort of mentioned him on the programme because he's local and what tournaments he's playing in. It's very rarely in the last couple of years since his Masters win, it's very rarely been good news. But he's did all right last week. Italian Open, he finished tied 8th. He was sort of in contention right until the Sunday. It's his best tournament finish in 16 months. And he's down to like 400th in the world or something, can you believe? I mean, after winning the Masters.
Yeah, what a fall, yeah.
I know, massive fall. Yeah. So he's actually the US Open next week, as is Matt Fitzpatrick as well, who's had a little good run in Europe himself. In golf as well, England's Nick Poppleton, he's from Waff Golf Club. He won the Brabazon Trophy. It's like the English amateur. So it's a massive win for Nick. Well done to him. And Sheffield Rugby Club, even though they got relegated from National 2 North this season just gone, their under-18 side, they've won the Yorkshire Cup for the third consecutive year. It's a great win as well, that, because they've been, you know, it's a tough competition, lots of great clubs as well throughout Yorkshire, Otley and Ilkley and all those kind of, you know, from that parish, very good clubs indeed. Well done to them. We'll finish off with Nick Matthew as well, because we said he's retired.
Yeah, he's coming in. I booked him for dates late summer.
Brilliant, great stuff. Well, because he's sort of retired, and then next thing he found himself in the draw for the World Series final. So he actually finished 9th on the rankings. It's the top 8, a bit like the tennis at the O2. And he's got himself into, because someone pulled out through injury, so he was the 8th man in. He's actually made it through to the semi-finals. So I spoke to him this morning. He's delighted. So hopefully it could be a career-defining kind of, you know, finishing fairy tale for him.
I know,
so
he's supposed to retire, but
yeah, so it'd be good to have him in, with some silverware. It'd be great.
Absolutely. Just a couple of other things to mention. We've mentioned Stocksbridge Park Steels occasionally, and I know Keith would be interested in this. Their very long-serving chairman, Alan Bethell, is finally calling it a day after more than 30 years. He's been a model of running a football club in a stable way, Alan Bethell, guest of the show a few months ago. Just check that out if you missed that. It was a fascinating interview with Alan. We wish him all the very best in his retirement. You know, a legend of the game, and somebody that you know.
I mean, when you see all these medals being handed out at the Queen's Birthday Honours, Bethell should be high up on the list to get some recognition for the work that he's put in. Thousands of kids have come through, and of course the great star was
Jamie Vardy.
He could be scoring lots of goals at the World Cup.
And if Atletico Madrid buy him, which is still rumoured, Stocksbridge Park Steels will get something over £1 million as a result of European legislation that still will exist despite Brexit. And the other mention, because we were doing a recorded show here last week, I forget even who was on, because I was on holiday, but thanks to the guests. It was Richard Timms. It was Richard Timms, wasn't it? And the ex Lord Mayor. Because it was recorded, obviously didn't get a chance to pay respects to the family and the friends and the boxing fraternity following the sad death of Brendan Ingle. You know, a true legend of sport, if ever there was one, but beyond that, just a fantastic man, a really warm-hearted man that you and I both knew, Keith.
Absolutely, a terrific guy. I can remember him coming and pleading when I was a director at Crosby Kitchens to supply him with a fairly cheap kitchen, which we did. And then we had Johnny Nelson and Errol and Brendan turn up and have a very enjoyable lunch, only on the understanding that they had to do a factory tour. So the production that afternoon went to zero. It was a terrific event.
What a man! And his funeral service is at Sheffield Cathedral a week today, actually, this coming Thursday, and I'm sure the turnout will fully reflect the love and admiration that the city have for Brendan Ingle. Sheffield United ladies kick off the new season in late August, am I right?
17th and 18th will be the Continental Cup, and then the league set to kick off 8th and 9th of August.
So it's not going to give you much time to get these 18 players in, is it? Yeah, are you going to get a holiday this year?
No.
Right. Okay. So
next season.
And this is quite daunting. And I mean, I'm not going to ask you specific figures, but do you feel your budget is competitive for what you've got to do?
It's it's competitive. You know, the club have looked after us in the sense of, you know, we're not going to go in there and just sort of be happy with finishing in the bottom few. We're going in there with a budget we feel that can go and compete. So yeah, we're happy with it.
Yeah, and what sort of benchmark have they set? You say you don't want to go down. Are you working to a brief of expectation in terms of where you're finishing?
I think naturally, obviously, season one, the club's ambitions will be to consolidate, and that will be, you know, what they would expect. We know where they want to be, sort of in 2 or 3 years, but consolidation has never been anything that I've been remotely interested in. You know, I'm a winner.
Do you know, you could be Chris Wilder talking.
Yeah.
You know, sitting here. You know, I don't think that word exists in his vocabulary either.
No.
So that runs.
He's been really good. Talking of Chris, hasn't he? You know, he's been really good with you. And
yeah, he's always, as I was saying before, he's been great. You know, he always pops into the office. How'd you get on at the weekend? He only walked in the other day when he got back off his holiday and said, "Congratulations, well done. You know, really pleased for you." And no, he's always sort of, you know, on the forefront. He doesn't have to pop in. He doesn't have to sort of come and spend time with us, but he does, which is good.
How much interest do you take in the men's team? I mean,
a lot, yeah. I don't think I'm there every weekend when you know.
She's always there. She's always sat in the posh seats. Always turn around and see Carla sat there, lording it up.
The joys of working for the club, I think.
Yeah. And Keith, you know, taking you away from refereeing for a minute. You're a long-standing supporter of the other team in Sheffield. What do you make of things there? Season finished pretty well. There's a great deal of expectation, but maybe it's subdued a bit.
I think, you know, at the end of the day, it's about how much money you're prepared to invest, how much freedom you give the manager to manage, and then it's the selection of the players. I think there were, you know, I didn't see them that often. I think, you know, some of the football was awful. It was awful to watch. And I can remember being a guest of a company and I said to the guys, look, at half-time, if I wasn't here helping you, I'd be on my way home. And probably, I think Wednesday have got some work to do. I think as a club, they are not as attached to the spectators as Sheffield United are with theirs.
I'd agree with that. Would you also say that's, I mean, Carla, you see it as well, sort of from the inside. Would you say that's probably more testament to United than probably is Wednesday's, you know, fault?
I would, yeah. It was a similar discussion we had this morning about the fact of United are, you know, I've been astounded that Blades fans want to watch Blades, whoever they are. And we've got a lot of the men's fans that have never watched a women's game coming to the ladies' games because it's Blades. They are very connected to the club. Yeah. It's unbelievable. But yeah, I would say it's more testament to United than it is.
Than it is kind of Wednesday's fault, I suppose, isn't it? But
Owls in the Park, though, is a step that was taken 2 or 3 years ago. It's proved immensely popular. They'd like to think they'd have the new kit out in time. I think in time for that. I think it's in July.
Wasn't it?
And going back to stripes as well, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a good move. I mean, talking to some of the fans, I know. I just feel that, you know, what we want to see is a bit of pace in the game, and we want to see some attacking football.
Well, towards the end of the season, that was delivered when the key players were back.
Well, the times I saw them, they seemed to be facing the wrong way, and the seats should have been facing the other way. You know, at the end of the day, the game is about entertainment, and the fans want to be entertained. They want value for money, and they want a degree of connection with the club. And you know, I think Sheffield United do more in connecting with the fans and talking to the fans and communicating with the fans. And I have to say, sadly, I think that's missing a bit. So people like me, who ought to be dyed in the wood blue and white, drift and get more enjoyment watching Penistone Church and Stocksbridge Works.
There's no shame or harm in watching those clubs at all.
I get 100% effort.
I thoroughly enjoy watching non-league football, and I fully intend to be watching Sheffield United FC ladies and, to be politically correct, Sheffield FC ladies during the coming season.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, very best of luck to you, Carla, in this brave new world that Bramall Lane is entering, and it'd be great to see both teams really at the top of the championship next season. And Keith Hackett, to see all your fears and reservations about referees in this country laid to rest and put you out of work as a pundit.
Well, I don't think that'll ever happen.
I don't think that's ever going to happen. Keith, thanks so much. Thanks. It's been brilliant to see you again. And Carla and James. And we hope to be firing on all cylinders with 3 cameras next week. This is on YouTube later. See you next week. Bye-bye.